Hello, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough, and today we're looking at another failed pilot based on a video game. Thankfully, it's not Bubsy this time, but we're looking at the cartoon based on Battletoads. For some background, it was a beat-em-up about three roided-out toads beating up bad guys as they were on a mission to save a princess from the clutches of an evil queen and her goons. Combined with some great music, graphics, and gameplay, it went down as a classic in 90s gaming. And like how they tried to turn Bubsy into its own show, they also tried the same with Battletoads. In 1992, Deke Entertainment tried turning Battletoads into its own animated series after the rapid success of Ninja Turtles, even recruiting Turtles and Transformers writer David Weiss to handle the first episode. But because of bad reception, this pilot was never picked up, and the show never went anywhere. Just let that sink in. Spaceballs cartoon gets a full season. Da Boom Crew gets a full season. Slim Shady Show, about 15 or so episodes. Battletoads goes down as a failed pilot, along with the Groovenians. How bad can this show really be? I mean, could it be any worse than some of the shows I've mentioned before? Let's find out. This is the Battletoads pilot. We begin with the theme song. That's actually not that bad. It's clearly modeled after the Toads' surfer dude personalities with the 50s style beach rock sound to it. So far so good. I mean, I don't think I've ever reviewed a bad show that actually had a good theme song.
It's the place where the Dominion.
Ah crap, I spoke too soon. The story proper begins with the Vulture trying to escape the attacks of the Dark Queen and General Slaughter. Apparently, they're after Princess Angelica and Professor T-Bird here because of the princess's magical amulet. It's here where we see the animation isn't ugly like some of these other shows I've talked about, but it's definitely wonky, especially the backgrounds, which half the time look like either a rejected Salvador Dali painting or a kid trying to draw on 2004 MS Paint. We then cut over to our main trio, Morgan, Dave, and George, as they're being chastised by their principal.
Morgan Ziegler, Dave Shar, George Pye. You three are the biggest losers in the history of Waldo P. Oxnard Junior High. And why? Because you're a bad influence on each other. So I'm splitting you three up.
Okay, if they really are a bad influence on each other, I get splitting them up. But a principal calling his own students losers? I don't think I've ever seen such a prick principal character in something I've reviewed since Principal Cinch from the Friendship games. The three are split up into different classes as we then see their dynamics. George is the big lug who wants to be a badass, Dave wants to be the center of attention but just makes himself look like a joke, and Morgan wants to be a heroic leader but just comes off as a nerd. Well, his actor would go on to play a heroic leader as Goku, so that's something.
Get lost, Toad! Nice going, Toad!
I know the 90s were a different era and all, but for someone who lived through that decade, please tell me, was Toad ever a popular insult? I mean, even Toady from Christmas Story makes more sense as an insult than just calling someone Toad. We then cut over to Angelica and T-Bird as they seek refuge from the attacks in this secret laboratory, and they stumble across this potion that can bring back her ancestors' protectors, the Battletoads.
But with this essence, we can create a new generation of Battletoads to protect you!
You gotta love how lucky it is they found that exact beaker in that exact location they were hiding in, right? As the boys hang out playing a video game cabinet at a convenience store, Angelica and T-Bird pop out of it. In connection to the Battletoads comic, where the boys were actually video game testers, they're sprayed with the stuff as they agree to be her protectors. And apparently the guy at the register is too invested with his magazine to notice any of this happening, or notice the evil woman and the army of furries popping out of the Slurpee machine.
I've come for the girl, T-Bird.
Help!
And now this video is going to get flagged by COPPA for inappropriate content. Thanks a lot. A fight scene then breaks out as the Toads use their signature smash hit moves from the game, turning their hands into gigantic fists, power tools, and other such heavy artillery to take out the goons.
Superhero City, we got serious brain bashing powers!
Say that again?
Superhero City!
More time?
City!
5 more times?
City!
Kid show! As the goons make a retreat, the princess then gives the boys their new names of Rash, Pimple, and Zitz, and T-Bird tells them they can switch between their human forms and their toad forms whenever they want.
You mean we can be totally grossed out heroes and still be our old selves too? Psychotronic!
Incredible!
Cosmorific!
Do you know that they made the show in 1992? Just thought I'd throw that out there. So the boys go to one of their teachers, who's surprisingly okay with having students turn into giant toads, alien birdmen, and intergalactic royalty, but he lets them stay there for the time being. And the princess even goes out and gets a job at a donut shop to bring in some money. General Slaughter and his army then come back to attack the boys once again with even more one-liners that I'm going to spare you all from, as the Dark Queen successfully kidnaps the princess. But thankfully they can catch up to her with their tricked-out pink Cadillac that Professor T-Bird was working on. A car that can fly. Okay. No matter what, please do not make the obvious reference.
Where we're going, we don't need tigers.
Oh. Why'd you have to go and bring Back to the Future into this? As they land outside the Queen's base, the Toads manage to break in and climb up the power shaft like in the game. As weak as this pilot has been so far, at least it has more in common with the game than the Bubsy pilot. As the Queen is about to do God knows what to the princess, the Toads saw their way in through the floor, even though they were climbing the shaft in the background? What? They managed to take out Slaughter and his goons once again, but the Queen poses more of a challenge as she turns into a giant twister. But they managed to defeat her and bring her entire base crumbling down by destroying the power shaft.
It's those Battletoads, Majesty. We just can't fight them.
Oh, yes, we can.
Sexual innuendo.
I will muster my last remaining power reserves and destroy them with the Whip Thaw.
Nobody thought that that could have probably used a second take on that line.
The Whip Thaw.
The Whip Thaw. The boys land back on Earth as the principal threatens to suspend the three for hanging out once again, but they show everyone as they transform into their toad forms.
Let's get warty!
Oh yeah, by the way, that's the show's catchphrase. Let's get warty. I have nothing to say at this point. I honestly don't. The stupid just kind of speaks for itself. The Queen then shows up in the Whip Thaw, which is just a giant UFO with a saw blade all around it, as she begins tearing up the town, starting with, le gasp, the mall.
Oh no! It's headed toward the mall!
Don't let her destroy our mall!
Oh no, not the mall! Next thing you know, she's probably gonna try and wipe out the skate park next! The Toads manage to work their way into the ship as they're surrounded. Surely they'll manage to stop these fiends in one more awesome fight scene, right? Well, no. The goons then fire lasers at them, they jump out of the way, and the whole ship then explodes as the Toads jump out in the nick of time. These guys work to destroy their own plans, I swear. The Toads are revered as heroes, the principal lets them hang out once again, and they end on one more catchphrase spout.
Let's hear it.
Toads rule!
Oh, that was the Battletoads pilot, and it sucked. The animation is pretty sloppy, the dialogue is extremely dated, and the biggest offense of this show is that it tries way too hard to be the next Ninja Turtles instead of being its own thing. It sucks because you could have made a really badass show based on these games, but instead, we just got this. It's not the worst pilot out there, since it's nowhere near as preachy as Groovenians or as annoying as the Bubsy cartoon, but it just feels like such wasted potential. And it's really odd to see such big-name voice actors show up in this pilot. This pilot wasn't very good, but at the same time, I really can't say it's one of the worst pilots I've sat through. I mean, it was nowhere near as bad as...
I need to be free, right? To express myself.
Or even as bad as...
What could possibly go wrong?
The media whiz, because one art form wasn't enough.